Now, I've made a lot of videos where I said some pretty mean things to Alienware devices. Your parents are disappointed in how your lives turned out. But I've never actually had a look at one of their gaming laptops, which apparently aren't all just plague-ridden goblin sharks, which make them potentially a lot better than their desktop counterparts. So for today's video, I bought the cheapest Alienware gaming laptop I could find to put this theory to the test. But first, today's video is sponsored by Be Quiet's dazzling new Lightloop AIOs. And it's not just the pump block that's got all fancy, but it has a state-of-the-art pump with progressive IC. I don't know what that means, but it sounds fancy. But my favorite part about the new Lightloop is the easy-to-access fill port. It even comes with additional liquid so you can top up the AIO if it ever gets a bit dry. And best yet, it performs very well hooked up to a window AC. So if you're in the market for a brand new AIO, check out the Be Quiet Lightloop using the link down below. The cheapest Alienware laptop I could find was the X14R2, which comes in nice packaging adorned with the obligatory patronizing gamer phrases. Where game? But the device is very well protected, and once you get deeper into the packaging, you get to the very cute little 130-watt power brick. But I feel like they could have shaped it a bit more alien-y, like a xenomorph head or an anal probe. The little warranty card has, I wouldn't say it's like an Apple product smell, but there's definitely a scent on this that isn't in the rest of the box. And then in here, Dell tells us all about how much they love whales and recycling ocean plastics. So it's nice, it's good. Good how happy they are. Now, considering how much they apparently love whales, there is a lot of plastic in this packaging, whether it is recycled or otherwise. Oh, there's another one of those. Now, straight off the bat, that is quite a nice looking device, which you can feel is very solidly built. The lid is definitely some form of metal, but immediately, what's this? It's a 14-inch laptop. It's supposed to be like a small little device, and then it's got this huge, thick booty on the back. In fact, it's got so much junk in its trunk that this 14-inch laptop is taller than the 16-inch Asus device. And when compared to an actual 14-inch laptop, the difference is considerable. And that booty is significantly lower build quality than the lid, so that is an immediate turnoff. I'm also not a fan of the color mismatch that material difference makes. But let me not harp on that too much. Let's see if it passes the one-hand open test. Yeah, it does. If it's not on a box, it does. Also, this is a bit of a weird side note, but this is a very high quality, like, in-between keyboard and display bit of fabric compared to other laptops. Ooh, at least they fit a nice hinge mechanism in that booty. Now, when you go to the bottom of the laptop, I quite like the design here. You've got a lot of ventilation going on. This bottom plate is metal, aside from the booty. Then you've got this very tall, rubberized foot with a bit of a cutout to give the ventilation a bit of clearance. Now, I really like the idea of I/O on the back of a laptop. I'm curious to see how it's going to feel using a device with all of the I/O on the back like this. And in terms of port selection, it's pretty good, although there's one big thing lacking, a dedicated Ethernet port, which is something I'd argue is pretty much non-optional for a gaming laptop. But you do have some Thunderbolt, so you can use an adapter, but... Now, when it comes to the inside of the laptop, again, there's so much depth real estate on this laptop. So to have such a narrow trackpad feels really weird to me. Why is that so tiny? Oh, I just noticed the fans can pull air through the top of the device. That's an interesting implementation. Although it does mean that you have kind of ear line of sight with the fans. So that's potentially concerning. Other than that, we have what looks like front-facing speakers, so that's really nice. I love that in laptops. And we've got our 14-inch display that is very high resolution. I think this may be a brilliant display, but we'll see a bit later. And then in terms of the webcam implementation, we don't have the kind of nose cam like some Dell laptops have, which is good. And it seems to have stereo microphones, which that's also a nice touch. Other than that, we've got the keyboard. that's just pretty standard run-of-the-mill laptop keyboard there. But what is nice is that instead of adding a numpad, which some of you will be upset about, but you do get dedicated volume buttons and like mute and stuff on the side, so I like that. Although our power button isn't an alien head, it's just a normal laptop power button. That's very disappointing. Oh, that's a lot of flex up there. It's kind of okay on the keyboard, but it is... Look at that! That's the thing with this laptop, is that a lot of it is quite nice. But then there are these little bits sprinkled in between that makes it feel like corners were cut. Although, there was a point that I missed on the back. It seems like this is gonna be super easy to open up, because we've got these 6 screws, and then because we have no I/O on the sides, it should just pop off. On that note, let's see how easy it actually is. Unscrewing was straightforward enough, even though 4 of them were captive. But once unscrewed, getting the back off was quite traumatic with a bunch of clips holding crap in place. Does not love the idea of opening up. One of the reasons that the opening was slightly traumatic is that it's got these Apple-like clips on the inside that hold this plate down. So this isn't like some of the other metal laptops where the bottom just kind of pops off once the screws are undone. I much prefer that. This is a really annoying way to hold the bottom of the laptop on. But once inside the laptop, it's a very neat interior, but it's neat in a way that makes it clear there's not much you can do to upgrade. Although, having said that, the M.2 storage is upgradable even if there's just one slot, and you can replace your Wi-Fi card. The battery looks pretty easily replaceable. This is a pretty big, flat little 80 watt-hour unit. Although it seems like RAM is soldered down on this laptop, which is a real shame. And the laptop comes with 16 gigs of DDR5, which isn't the worst, but you would conceivably want more RAM in the lifespan of this laptop. Other than that, specs-wise, we've got an Intel i7-13620H, which is a real mouthful, a 512GB SSD, and an RTX 4050, which seems to be a cut-down variant of the 4060, which has had at least one of its kneecaps blown out with its 6GB of video memory and tiny bus. The next step was to remove the booty codpiece to see just what exactly is living in there. So here we can see what the massive booty is for. On the top bit of it, it's mostly display hinge, which, you know, it looks like quite a robust hinge. Like if you open it up. Whoa. And then on the other side, aside from a little bit of motherboard extension for the I/O to reach the back, there's also a bit more heatsink. I find this fan implementation really interesting because the fans can pull air from the top and the bottom of the laptop, which, you know, it makes a lot of sense. The top is usually much less constricted airflow-wise than the bottom. So with that, let's switch the laptop on and see how it runs. And once I fired up the little laptop, there was one massive pleasant surprise that I was not expecting. There's no McAfee on here. Did they make a mistake? Was that like an accident? I don't think they did, because on Alienware's website, no antivirus is the default checked box, which is a huge win. When did that happen? That's so exciting. I mean, we still have the standard like Alienware crap on it, but that makes sense. It's an Alienware laptop. But the fact that there's no McAfee, or in fact, any other antivirus is wild. The display is also very nice. It's a 2560 by 1600, so it's a 16 by 10 display that has a 165Hz refresh rate and measures pretty well. The only issue is some inaccuracy in dark gray. And the high resolution, which does give very sharp text, does mean we're gonna have to game in less than native resolution, which is a bit of a shame. Now in terms of webcam, this is what it does, and from where I'm sitting, it looks pretty flat, despite the fact that there's quite a lot of light contrast in here. It's not a very punchy image, but it looks usable. You've got a nice wide field of view, so you can like see things around you. And in terms of the microphone, from what I've heard, it sounds very webcam-y, but I'll cut it between my lav mic and the kind of stereo microphone up here. But from what I've heard, it just sounds like I'm Skyping from a laptop. So this is CS2 running at 1080p, well, 1200p, but it's basically 1080p at low settings, and our little 4050 is doing pretty well. we're getting 200 frames per second, which looks and feels great on this display. This is balanced power mode, which the system's not doing a whole lot running CS2 here, but that does give us pretty good temperatures for a laptop, and the noise isn't too bad either. At which point CS2 crashed while I tried to apply some settings, and then MSI Afterburner just couldn't show us GPU utilization and memory frequency anymore. I even reinstalled MSI Afterburner, but apparently we're not allowed to see that information anymore. In fact, generally the Windows install felt pretty unstable, with games occasionally crashing and things taking really long to load, which again just highlights the point: when you buy a new laptop, install a fresh copy of Windows on it. So this is Doom Eternal running at 1080p high settings, and you know, this is decent performance happening here. I then switched to performance power mode in the Windows control panel, which had no impact on the power draw of the system. So now we're trying out Cyberpunk, and this is at 1080p medium settings. Well, again, 1200p. But I did discover in the Alienware panel a performance mode, which does give us quite a bit higher wattage to the GPU, but with a pretty huge temperature penalty. We're sitting in the mid-80s now, as opposed to mid-70s before, and we still don't know what the graphics card's doing temperature-wise because we're not allowed that information. But with this different performance mode, we are getting quite a bit more performance. So when benchmarking Cyberpunk, it did benefit quite a bit from the extra power. And interestingly, we're not getting much higher fan speeds. Like it's not super noisy. Although interestingly, after gaming for a while in performance mode, the power draw and the frame rate slowly crept down over time, until I was eventually just getting about 30 frames per second, and it was pretty stuttery at this point. So despite the massive booty, the laptop doesn't have enough cooling in it to sustain performance mode gaming for more than like 20 minutes. At least with the fan speed it was maintaining. And while loading into The Last of Us, CPU temperatures peaked at 100 degrees Celsius. Fun! And with The Last of Us, even at 1200p medium settings, the game was already real unhappy about our 6 gigs of video memory. But despite that, and the fact that the CPU was role-playing as the sunny side of Mercury, we were getting a usable result. But to put that result into perspective, depending on how hard the CPU was throttling at any given time, I was getting similar performance to a desktop RTX 3050 6GB variant, which is not a compliment. But the little Alienware's averages were still higher. And some quick final notes before we get to the price. I like all the I/O on the back, it keeps the sides really clean, although the vents on the side does mean that you often get a lot of hot air spilled onto your hand while gaming, which isn't really comfortable. Also, the low keyboard means that you don't have quite enough palm rest to comfortably rest your hand while gaming. Oh, and the speakers are pretty good. They're reasonably clear, although they have zero bass, which honestly I don't mind. It's better than terrible bass. And then finally, let's get to the price. Well, I bought this laptop from Best Buy for 1,400 Canadian dollars, which was on sale, which honestly, for the build quality in this kind of laptop, it seems pretty good. But if you buy it from Alienware, it's 1,900 Canadian dollars, but that's apparently on sale, and according to their website, it's normally 2,400 Canadian dollars, which, I don't know, that feels like a wild amount. At that price, it's more expensive than the Asus Zephyrus G14, which in my opinion is a much nicer laptop. So with that, let me know what you think about Alienware laptops and if they're better than their desktop counterparts. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, watch another one. A suggestion will pop up in a second. Subscribe to the channel, and until the next one, bye-bye.